Before we start, we advise viewers to consider carefully. The following content is intended for educational and entertainment purposes only. During Sean Diddy Combs' trial, no one expected the next witness to be wearing a navy blue suit with a badge hidden under his lapel. But when former FBI agent Mark Halperin stepped up to the stand, the entire room fell silent. What he revealed was not just a scandal, it was a network, a protective system so extensive that it could reach the highest offices in the United States. That's right, he mentioned Barack Obama, someone many consider a symbol of hope, who is now alleged to be connected to parties, pardons, and protection related to Diddy. According to Halperin, the real reason Diddy has been untouchable for decades has nothing to do with a good lawyer, but rather because he was useful to those in power. Next came the testimony linking political, religious, and music industry connections, as well as a silent control network that has been built since the 1990s. The courtroom was packed, but no one could breathe. Not until the back door opened and a man in a dark suit with a briefcase walked in. No name was announced. No credentials were read aloud. The judge merely nodded. That was the signal. This was not an ordinary witness. This was someone operating in the shadows, a person with access far beyond what any journalist or private investigator could dream of. He was simply referred to as the agent, a senior federal agent who had worked for decades in FBI's organized crime and political corruption units. And today, for the first time, he testified under oath about a man, Sean Diddy Combs. The agent sat down, opened his briefcase, and placed a black binder on the witness stand. He didn't look at Diddy, who was sitting silently at the defense table, his fingers tightly interlaced. He also did not look at the jury. He simply stated, "I've been tracking Mr. Cam and his business for over 2 decades. This is not new. What's new is that we are finally allowed to talk about it." The judge signaled him to continue. This representative testified that the FBI had opened an initial investigation into Shaqcom since the late 1990s. The red flags have always been there. He said, "We had unreasonable financial transactions, private parties overlapping with known trafficking networks, foreign connections leading to criminal shell companies, but every time we got closer, the door would slam shut." This agent described a specific case in 2001, an international money laundering sweep involving a branch in Europe. The evidence pointed directly to Diddy's financial team. Foreign accounts were creating fake invoices and setting up shell companies in Luxembourg and Biz. But when it came time to request a warrant, the warrant was denied. That was the first time I realized, the representative said, "We're not just dealing with protecting celebrities here. We're dealing with federal intervention." Whispers echoed throughout the courtroom. The representative continued, "I don't mean to imply anything mysterious, but this isn't a case of local police being afraid. This is top-down, Washington-level intervention. People were telling us to stop. Records went missing. Witnesses were moved elsewhere. Investigators were reassigned. At first, we thought it was a coincidence, but it wasn't. Then the prosecution presented a timeline of blocked investigations from 1999 to 2013. Every time Diddy was connected to criminal activity, from human trafficking to assault to wire fraud, there was always a key witness who disappeared or a federal delay that froze the investigation." A juror looked visibly stunned. A woman in the courtroom gasped and covered her mouth. Then came the bombshell. In 2003, an agent stated, "We have reason to believe that Mr. Combs is operating under the protection of an unofficial informant, a type of protection that isn't recorded in public logs. Such protection could only come from very high levels. Someone in the federal government who has enough authority to approve that." The room felt like it was frozen, and Diddy looked like he knew exactly who. And at that time, there were only 3 people in the federal government who had the authority to approve that. The room felt like it was frozen, and Diddy looked like he knew exactly who those people were. Agent Redacted leaned forward and cleared his throat. This is where the story takes a turn. He stated that the issue isn't just about the crimes committed, but also about who allowed those crimes to continue. And that brings us to Mr. Combs' relationship with the highest political figures. specifically Barack Obama. The courtroom fell into stunned silence. Even the judge slowly raised his head, squinting. The representative opened his black briefcase and presented a series of photos to the jury. The first photo was a blurry shot from 2005 showing him next to Senator Barack Obama at a fundraising event in Chicago. The next event took place in 2007, a private informal gathering in Washington, D.C., organized by a powerful lobbying group closely tied to the Democratic National Committee. Diddy was listed under an alias, but the photo clearly showed he was there and not alone. The representative explained that this wasn't just a photo op. These were meetings, closed sessions. We believe Mr. Combs was involved in sharing intelligence with campaign staff, exchanging favors, revealing information about others in exchange for protection. The defense stood up and shouted, "Objection!" before the representative could finish his statement, but the prosecution calmly submitted authentic evidence movement logs, email, metadata, even an edited internal memo referencing a cultural outreach meeting involving Diddy and high-value entertainment assets. "This is what we know," the representative said, his voice growing more resolute. "In 2009, right after Obama took office, our agency submitted a wiretap request targeting Sean Combs. The goal was to intercept communications between Mr. Combs and several notorious drug lords involved in laundering money through production companies linked to the bad guys. The request was denied. The courtroom buzzed, no one agreeing with the prosecutor's witness. The agent flipped to the last page of the file, which was a call log from a law office under the White House. The name was redacted, but the timestamps matched exactly when our request was made. The judge instructed the jury to disregard any speculation, but the damage was already done. The implications were anything but subtle. This moment wasn't coincidental. A man under federal scrutiny somehow accessed the White House enough to stall a wiretap. "We're not accusing President Obama of personally protecting Mr. Combs," the representative clarified. "But we are saying that his administration created a pipeline, a relationship, and that relationship did provide immunity for Mr. Combs for many years." Reporters scribbled furiously. Even the court reporter paused for a moment before continuing. "This isn't a case of Diddy getting lucky. This was calculated, designed, executed with power, much greater than anyone could anticipate. And this is just the beginning." At this point, the jury was leaning forward, eyes wide, pens down. Agent Redacted revealed a part of the trial that no one, not even the boldest reporters, dared to predict. But what happened next shifted the entire atmosphere of the courtroom from curiosity to fear. The representative held up the final photo. It wasn't grainy, not a secret. This was a high-resolution photo taken at a private event in Martha's Vineyard. There were 3 men in it: Sean Diddy Combs, former President Barack Obama, and Reverend Al Sharpton. They weren't posing for a press photo. This wasn't a public event. It was a low-light gathering on private property owned by a tech billionaire connected to both the entertainment industry and defense contracting companies. Defense contracting companies. This photo was taken in 2014. The representative says they call it a charity dinner, but we have. This photo was taken in 2014. The guest list through channels approved by the court. What we found were names linked to multiple secret investigations, former CIA agents, arms dealers under sanctions, and whispers resurfacing among the representatives of TriStar Entertainment. The judge criticized the motion to dismiss. The representative continued, "Mr. Kamias is not a guest. He is the go-between transmitting information from the streets of New York to the marble halls of political power, and in return, his sins are forgiven." A juror dropped their pen. Then came the story that even made the judge squint. In 2012, the representative stated that a human trafficking sweep was conducted by the Miami field office. An acquaintance of Mr. Combs was caught red-handed. Girls, drugs, foreigners, wire transfers. This is the kind of case that stirs public outrage. The representative looked up with heavy eyes. 48 hours later, the records were sealed. Agents were reassigned. The suspect was released and the case vanished. When the prosecutor asked, the representative didn't hesitate. A phone call came from an extension of Capitol Hill. That's all we know. No names, just a phone call and everything disappeared. Then he handed over internal memos, emails from confused agents warning about interference. One highlighted line, the representative noted, it said, "Don't ask why this was buried. Just be glad he's not in the room." Then came perhaps the darkest revelation. At one point in 2015, the representative said, "We closely monitored Mr. Kamez's every move. He traveled to Haiti, then to Colombia, then to private islands in the Caribbean. At first, we believed it was a recreational trip, but intelligence from foreign partners suggested otherwise. Meetings with sponsors linked to gangs, yacht parties involving underage girls brought in from Brazil and Eastern Europe. One source even claimed that the girls were told they were attending an audition for American Idol." At this point, the jury looked visibly shocked. The representative closed the file. Throughout this time, he wore the mask of a mogul, a philanthropist, a revolutionary. But behind the scenes, he was running an empire built on fear, blackmail, and immunity bought with influence. The judge called for a recess. People slowly left the room, many in stunned silence. For the first time since the trial began, Diddy looked like a man who realized the walls were finally closing in. When court reconvened, the witnesses grew quiet, somber. He was no longer just a music mogul on trial. It was the illusion of safety, of equality, of justice. The agent continued his testimony, his tone now heavier. What he revealed next made the courtroom feel distinctly stiff. "We have reason to believe he started that a surveillance tape from several of Com's properties existed since 2003. We know this not through speculation, but because some of that footage had passed through federal hands for a brief period. He pressed a remote control, a projector displayed a screenshot, a video clip timestamped from a surveillance room in one of Diddy's homes in Los Angeles. This footage was leaked to us by a whistleblower from a private security company that has since gone out of business due to being hired by Com Beams. The room contained over 30 screens, each linked to different locations, bedrooms, hallways, pools, private studios. Many of the cameras, as we learned, were hidden, and those being filmed had no idea, whispers echoing from the crowd. Now, this is where things got darker. The agent continued. In 2016, we obtained a warrant to seize 3 hard drives believed to contain this footage. But when agents arrived at the designated location, a fire broke out in the server room. The arson was confirmed. Less than 20 minutes after our field office received a notification indicating a leak inside. Someone had warned them that he had described the only remaining drive miraculously found from a safe in Puerto Rico. He stated that the footage showed interactions between him and many celebrities, businessmen, and politicians in extremely vulnerable states. Some appeared intoxicated, others clearly coerced. Did Barack Obama appear in that footage? The prosecutor asked bluntly. He did not. But the representative said there were several close friends, donors, and political allies of the administration, and it was heard that he referred to them by their first names. He knew their secrets. He held on to these tapes as a leverage. The courtroom fell silent once again. Then the representative said something that haunted the entire trial. Finally, he said, "He didn't just collect these recordings to satisfy his ego, did he? He used them as a type of insurance in case someone tried to cut ties with him." That night, major news networks reported, but in private, in secret rooms across D.C. and L.A., crisis teams were trying to ask the only meaningful question: how much does he really know? The trial continued the next morning with heightened security. Federal agents lined the walls. The atmosphere was different now, a kind of fear that only appears when corruption has spread further than its origin. The agent was re-edited and returned to the stand, holding a sealed envelope. He requested the judge to open court privately. Inside was a classified memo titled "Letter from an Agency Rarely Mentioned in Court," the Central Intelligence Agency. According to the records, this agent stated that this memo was declassified specifically for this trial. This document was originally compiled by a senior analyst from the CIA's Domestic Operations Division in 2012. Subject line: entertainment assets, high-risk targets. The judge nodded and allowed him to summarize. Starting in the mid-2000s, Mr. Combs was identified as a significant cultural influencer with the potential for domestic manipulation. He had been warned by multiple departments due to connections with arms traffickers, foreign bankers, and intelligence figures involved in Eastern Europe and West Africa. The representative paused to listen. The CIA did not officially recruit Mr. Combs, he continued. However, they benefited from his closeness to notable individuals. His events, parties, and influence provided a goldmine of behavioral data in exchange for plausible deniability. Media operations were allowed to unfold without much legal interference. You mean the CIA let him do these things? Asked the prosecutor. I mean, the representative replied that the agency found his activities beneficial. They might not have condoned his crimes, but they certainly overlooked them. The next part was even more damning. The representative held up a notarized ledger. He stated that this document contained a list of money transfers made by shell companies linked to Combs, including several transfers through TriStar Entertainment and other organizations connected to Britney Spears' conservatorship structure, the recipient's senior political advisors, lobbyists, even an individual linked to human trafficking in the Caribbean who mysteriously vanished from the Department of Justice records in 2015. The implication was clear. Diddy was not a lone monster. He was part of a well-funded and tightly controlled influence network, specializing in blackmail and providing classified information. War. And just when the court thought it couldn't dig any deeper, Agent Redacted revealed the final line. We believe, he stated, that one of Diddy's foreign accounts was used to purchase classified information from a former NSA contractor. That contractor has since passed away. The courtroom erupted. The judge ordered everyone to maintain order, but no one, not even Diddy's lawyer, seemed to know what to do next. Agent Redacted's testimony began with a simple statement: Mr. Combs has the president's phone number, and gasps echoed throughout the room. In 2014, following the fallout from the music industry scandal involving multiple underage girls and foreign guests, our team tried to apprehend Mr. Combs as he returned to the United States. From St. Bartholomew, a red flag was issued. His private jet was scheduled for a search upon landing in Miami. The agent held up a file from the Department of Homeland Security. This was a customs alert. It was live-streamed. The agent held up a file from the Department of Homeland Security. This was a customs alert. It was live for 37 minutes and then suddenly stopped. Why? The prosecutor asked. Because someone from the Obama administration called DHS. The call lasted 41 seconds. That's all we know. Then it was traced back that this phone number was from a security switchboard used by White House advisors. The alert disappeared. The case was dropped. Diddy walked out of the airport. Unedited surveillance footage showed him smiling as he got into a black SUV. Then, we learned that the representative continued to say that Diddy donated $500,000 to an organization closely tied to Obama's re-election efforts within 48 hours after that call. Hours after that call. The moment was decisive. The courtroom fell silent in shock. Not a word was spoken. Not a cough was heard. The moment was decisive. The courtroom fell silent in shock. Not a word was spoken. Not a cough was heard. Not even the sound of a pen scribbling. The representative took a breath. I'm not here to accuse the former president. I'm here to prove that Mr. Combs had access that no one else could, and he used it to protect himself, cover up crimes, and silence victims. A wave of realization washed over the room. This was no longer just about Diddy. This was a system, a structure, a pipeline of power surrounding the highest echelons of the United States. And that question hung in the air like smoke. Did anyone know that by the time Agent Redacted returned to the witness stand for the 7th time, reporters had coined a new term for the hearing, the blacklist trial, because the next thing he brought forward was a document so explosive that it was handed to the judge in a fireproof briefcase. Inside was a 94-page file the FBI referred to as Project Ghost Room. He told the jury that this was Diddy's insurance policy. The files from the Fong Ma were first discovered during a raid at a storage facility in Newark, New Jersey in 2022. They were hidden in a climate-controlled vault under the cover of a fake business. Agents uncovered dozens of hard drives and hundreds of Polaroid photos, But the most significant find was a directory labeled as Protected Storage Priority BL. Inside were handwritten notes, flight lists, edited surveillance photos, and recorded conversations, many captured from hidden microphones believed to be installed in nightclubs. Diddy frequented these places from 2004 to 2019. Among the names on the list were executives from Interscope, Rock Nation, Live Nation, and even two former White House aides. Most condemnable were the black and white photos showing individuals in compromising positions, complete with timestamps, abbreviations, and keywords like leverage, silence, and verification of use. The representative explained that the purpose of this archive was not for entertainment, it was extortion. He continued, "Whenever a new artist refuses to sign a contract or needs a political favor, Mr. Combs would imply that there are tapes, and those in those tapes often back down." Agent Redacted cited a case from 2017 where a rising pop star declined to perform at a Diddy event. Within days, rumors of a private fallout surfaced in tabloid newspapers. Soon after, she signed with a record label affiliated with Diddy's distribution channel. But one item in the records caused the court to halt the trial. It had finished handling cold BONRS. It confirmed the payment. It had received donations. Many believe these abbreviations refer to Barack Obama and a prominent record label executive. While no direct recordings of the president were found, it was evident that donations, favors, and influence have long been part of a mutually beneficial arrangement. This is not an accusation, Agent Redacted concluded. These are patterns, tactics. This is not about throwing parties. This is about building an underground empire. Every night, every tape, every time a favor. As the trial entered its 8th day, a somber atmosphere permeated the courtroom. What happened next was not financial ledgers or phone logs. It was about people. The representative edited the testimony, this time with a manila folder marked as confidential witness files denied. These were testimonies and statements from individuals who had come forward in the early stages of the investigation but had chosen not to testify in court for various reasons. He stated that at least 26 people had provided us with statements regarding their experiences with Mr. Comey, but had declined to appear due to threats, non-disclosure agreements, or fear of retaliation. He began to read excerpts. One individual revealed that she was drugged at a party and then woke up disoriented with bruises she couldn't explain. When she tried to report it, her management company dropped her contract that very week. Another story came from a male model, then 19 years old, who flew to Miami under the pretense of a fashion shoot. According to his sworn statement, what he witnessed was like closed eyes, cameras everywhere, no phone usage allowed, and a manager instructing him to not speak unless prompted. But the most harrowing account came from someone simply referred to as CW111. This person claimed they were only 17 when introduced to Diddy by someone in the crew. The statement included, "I thought it was mentorship, but it was not. He said if I walked away or said anything, my family would regret it." The courtroom fell silent as the representative closed the file. These were not the people making headlines. They were not the ones with backgrounds, but they still existed, and their fear had prolonged this situation longer than necessary. Then, he held up a list. Names redacted, but the dates and locations matching known events. The judge asked, "What is that list?" But the dates and locations matched known events. The judge asked, "What is that list?" "Confirmed victims," the representative said. "Confirmed victims," the representative stated, "who have stories that match multiple data points from our investigation." As he stepped down, no one in the room could hold back tears, not even the jury. On the final day of Agent Redacted's testimony, security at the courthouse was doubled, not because of threats, but because they anticipated what was about to happen. "We saved the final evidence for today," the agent said, opening the sealed transcript. This is the transcript of a phone call intercepted in 2015 between Mr. Comey and an unnamed figure related to a major lobbying firm in D.C. The transcript has been verified by multiple analysts and voice recognition software. He paused and then began to read. He said, "Keep it a secret. A voice believed to be Diddy's reportedly said, "But I did my part. Keep it a secret." A voice believed to be Diddy's reportedly said, "But I did my part. I brought in the dollars. I brought in the dollars. I brought the artists in. In the last election, we turned 5 districts blue. If I go down, some of you will go down with me." The representative looked up. That voice belonged to Mr. Combe, and what he mentioned wasn't just about music or parties. He was talking about campaign contributions, voter mobilization, and the ability to influence the election through celebrity power. The entire room felt like it exploded. The campaign strategy of a sitting president is said to be connected to one of the most notorious figures currently on trial. Even indirectly, that image feels apocalyptic. A juror whispered clearly. "Jesus Christ," the representative concluded. "Diddy isn't just buying silence. He's also buying relevance. And the currency is your vote." He resigned. The judge dismissed the court. And just like that, the trial that began as a celebrity scandal turned into the darkest chapter in modern political memory. A trial that could ultimately expose the rot that has existed behind closed doors for decades. The question now is, how many more names are on that blacklist?